Hi, welcome to Sean's Good Time Sports Podcast. Today, knowing that the NFL season will be starting in 6 days, we'll be going over my 2021-2022 season predictions for 17 games for all 32 teams. So we're going to break that down, and we're going to be giving out all my predictions of what all 32 teams' record will be. Starting off with the AFC, we'll be doing the AFC East first. So, the Bills. Week 1, they play Pittsburgh. I think the Bills will beat the Steelers. It'll be a tough game. Then week 2, the Bills play the Dolphins. I think the Bills will beat the Dolphins. Week 3, I think the Bills will beat the Washington football team. Week 4, I think they'll beat the Houston Texans. Week 5, I think the Bills lose to the Chiefs. Week 6, I think they lose to the Titans. Then I think they beat the Dolphins again. Then I think they beat the Jaguars. They beat the Jets. Then they play the Colts. They beat the Colts. Then they play the Saints. They beat the Saints. Then they play the Patriots. They beat the Patriots. Play the Buccaneers. Will lose to the Buccaneers. Beat the Panthers. And then lose to the Patriots. And beat the Falcons. And then beat the Jets last game of the season. So I got the Bills going 13-4. I think they got a really good team. I think it's top 2 in the AFC. Maybe top 3, but I think top 2 right now. But you look at their schedule. It's a tough schedule, but where you look at where their home games are, it advantages them. And I just think the Bills will take care of business. They'll be one of the top teams, and I think they will win the division. All right, so now on to the Dolphins. Week 1, they play the Patriots. I had them losing to the Patriots. Week 2, I have them losing to the Bills. Week 3, I have them losing to the Raiders. Then they play the Colts. I have them losing to the Colts. Then they play the Buccaneers. I have them losing to the Buccaneers. Then they beat the Jaguars. And then they beat the Falcons. They play the Bills again and lose to the Bills. Beat the Texans. Lose to the Ravens. Lose to the Jets. Lose to the Panthers. And then they beat the Giants. Beat the Jets. Beat the Saints. Lose to the Saints, lose to the Titans, and then they end on the year beating the Patriots. And, that game at the end of the year, they always play the Patriots very well in Miami, so I think the spread will probably be kind of high. I'm going to take the Dolphins on that one. So I had the Bills with a record of 6-11 on the year. All right, now for the Patriots schedule. Week 1. Play the Dolphins, they beat the Dolphins. Then they play the Jets, beat the Jets. Play the Saints, beat the Saints. And then Tom Brady and the Buccaneers go play in New England. Tom Brady will be home. I think the Buccaneers just destroy them. I think they kick the Patriots' ass. I think they do it handily. I think they take care of them early. I think, I could see them benching Brady in the third quarter or fourth quarter. That's how bad it's going to be. I think right now when you look at what the Patriots have, they have Antonio Brown, Gronk, Brady. These guys are second-year group together, also former New England Patriot players. They're going to be fired up, they're going to be hungry, and they're going to eat. I think the Buccaneers take care of them easy. Then I have the Patriots beating the Texans. I have them losing to Dallas, beating the Jets, losing to the Chargers, beating the Panthers, losing to the Browns, then beating the Falcons, losing to the Titans, losing to the Bills, beat the Colts in a tough game, beat the Bills. I think they'll go 1-1 with each other. Then they beat the Jaguars, lose to the Dolphins. Like I said, that game at the end of the year being Miami. Miami really has their number in the last couple of years in Miami against New England. So I just think the spread will be high. I like the Dolphins in that one. All right, now to the Jets schedule. Beat the Panthers week 1. Lose to the Patriots. Lose to the Broncos. Lose to the Titans. Lose to the Falcons. Lose to the Patriots, lose to the Bengals, lose to the Colts, lose to the Bills, lose to the Dolphins, beat the Texans, they get on a winning streak here, beat the Texans, beat the Eagles, beat the Saints, then they lose to the Dolphins in a close one, beat the Jaguars, lose to the Buccaneers, and lose to the Bills. Those are 2 rough games to have at the end of the year when it comes time to get in the playoffs, so those will be 2 tough losses. So the Jets record would come out to be 5-12. Tough schedule for the Jets. really tough opponents, but that's how it is. They have a tough schedule. All right, now to the AFC West. Starting with the Broncos. The Broncos beat the Giants week 1, beat the Jaguars, beat the Jets, lose to the Ravens. I think that one's a close one. I think they could possibly maybe beat the Ravens. I think that's going to be a tough one because it's in Denver. I think it's going to come down to who runs the ball and whose field goal kicker's on, and also the defense. Broncos got a really good defense. I really like their pass rush. Their front four is nasty. They could really get after Lamar and give him some trouble. So I think they lose the Ravens, though, in that one. I think it's a close one, though. Lose to Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's going to have their number. I think this is a game where you see Pittsburgh's receivers just go off. So I like Pittsburgh in that one. Beat the Raiders. Lose to the Browns. Lose to the Washington football team. Lose to the Cowboys. Beat the Eagles. Beat the Chargers in a tough game. I think Ben gets it done. Big Ben's going to look vintage at that game. He's going to get it done against the Chargers, so that's going to be a very impressive game, I think. Lose to the Chiefs. Beat the Lions. Beat the Bengals. Lose to the Raiders. Lose to the Chargers. Lose to the Chiefs. So the Broncos going 8-9 on the year. All right, now for the Chiefs' schedule. This is going to be pretty easy. I just think the Chiefs have a really, I wouldn't say an easy schedule, but yes, they do have an easy schedule because where their hard games are at, it's at home, and that's not a fun place to play. And they play a lot of their hard teams early in the year when you're playing football and you're trying to get back in football. Kansas City's, they're not playing football. They're on the track field, gone. They get you early, and they just keep going, and they don't take their foot off the gas pedal. They murder you fast, and it is bad. So let's break down their schedule right now. But this is going to be easy because they're a bad team to play, and they're going to have a really good year. And this is the best I've ever seen Mahomes look. So I have them beating the Browns, beating the Ravens, beating the Chargers, beating the Eagles, beating the Bills, beating the Washington football team, beating the Titans, beating the Giants, beating the Packers, beating the Raiders, beating the Cowboys, beating the Broncos, beating the Raiders, beating the Chargers, beating the Steelers, beating the Bengals, and beating the Broncos. I had the Chiefs going 17-0. I think if you look at their schedule, where games are at late in the year, who they're playing early in the year, where their hard games are at, being mainly at home, I don't think they have one hard game, on the road besides maybe Denver because of the defense or the Chargers. But I think they might go 17-0. I'm gonna lock that in because I like the team and I like what they got, and I just really like the Chiefs this year. All right, now into the Raiders' schedule. Lose to the Ravens. I think that one's gonna be a tough game. I think they could beat the Ravens. If you look at the Raiders' defense, it's one of the most underrated defenses in the NFL. They just added KJ Wright. I think if Derek Carr can get Brayden Edwards the ball and Josh Jacobs and Kendrick Drake and Darren Waller the ball and Renfro, I think they could be fine and they could have a really good year. But I just don't know. There's so many question marks with the Raiders. But I think that game against Baltimore, being the first game ever in Las Vegas with all fans there, is week 1 against the Ravens. I think they could beat the Ravens, but I'm taking the Ravens. So I have them losing to the Ravens, beating the Steelers in a tough game. I think they get it done. Beating the Dolphins, losing to the Chargers, losing to the Bears. Bears are tough. Losing to the Broncos, beating the Eagles, beating the Giants, losing to the Chiefs, beating the Bengals, losing to the Cowboys, losing to the Washington football team, losing to the Chiefs, losing to the Browns, beating the Broncos second time around, losing to the Colts, and then losing to the Chargers. I think the Raiders have a really tough schedule. One of the hardest divisions in the AFC if you look at talent-wise, offensively on the rosters. It's going to be hard for them to compete, but maybe that defense can just turn around, and maybe they can squeak out more wins than what I have them going, but I have them going 6-11. But we'll see on the year. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm eating my words off that because I do like their defense, and it's an underrated defense, and I'm very excited to see that Week 1 matchup against the Ravens. I think it's going to be a very interesting and intriguing matchup, though. No doubt about it. All right, on to the Chargers' schedule. I have them beating the Washington football team. I actually think they take care of Washington pretty easily Week 1. I don't think Washington's can be ready for that type of offensive power or what they bring. I think they lose to the Cowboys, lose to the Chiefs, beat the Raiders, get back on track, beat the Browns, Lose to the Ravens in a tough one. It's in Baltimore. If it was in Los Angeles, I'd definitely take the Chargers, but it's in Baltimore. I think the Ravens crowd will rally around them and they'll get it done. I think they'll probably win by 7 or 10. Beat the Patriots, beat the Eagles, beat the Vikings, beat the Steelers, lose to the Broncos, beat the Bengals, beat the Giants, lose to the Chiefs in the tough one, beat the Texans, beat the Broncos, beat the Raiders. I think the Chargers are going to have a really good year. I think Justin Herbert's an MVP candidate. Don't be surprised if he wins it because he's that good. He will be in the conversation, no doubt about it, with that offensive line, with those weapons. And their goal is going to be to kick your ass. And I think that's what they're going to do to a lot of teams this year. So I have the Chargers going 12-5. I think we're going to see a very exciting, very impressive year from that offense, from that coach, from the quarterback. I think we're looking at a really fun year for the Chargers. All right, now to the AFC North, my division. We'll be starting with the Ravens. I have them beating the Raiders. Like I said, I think that one's going to be a close one. I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders pull that off, but I think the Ravens get it done. Lose to the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs, is this too early for them to play the Ravens? I think the Chiefs probably beat the Ravens. I'd probably say by 7 or 10 points. I just think it's too early for the Ravens to play them. I think the Ravens need to play them in December, in January, and we just haven't got where the Ravens play them later in the year. They always make the game week 1, week 2, week 3, and it's disappointing, but that's just how the NFL's done it, so that's what it is. Beat the Lions. I think they beat the Broncos in a close one. Like I said, I think it's whoever runs the ball good, whoever's defense steps up, and whoever's making the field goals. That's who's going to win that game. But I do think they beat the Broncos. I think they beat the Colts pretty good because what they did last year, but also this is in Baltimore. This isn't in Indianapolis. I think the Ravens take care of them there. Beat the Chargers. Like I said, I think they get that one done because it's in Baltimore. But if it was in, Los Angeles, I would probably take the Chargers. Beat the Bengals, beat the Dolphins. They could lose this one. I think they beat the Bears, though, because I don't know who the quarterback at the time will be. I think it will be Andy Dalton still at that time. So I will take the Ravens just for that fact. But things could change over the year when I do my picks, everything, in these next couple of weeks when time comes. But I have us beating the Bears, losing to the Browns at home. I think Cleveland plays us really good at home. I think they're probably the better team. If I look roster-wise, they probably have the best roster or second-best roster. I really like the Browns this year. I think we beat the Steelers. I think we beat the Browns right after that, and I'll tell you why. Because the Browns, when they play us, they get a bye and then they play us again. You don't want to play us back-to-back like that. It's not going to be fun because you will get bruised up from the first game, and that's not going to be a pretty face to see us again. So for that reason, I think we beat the Browns in the second matchup in Cleveland. Then we play the Packers. I think we beat the Packers for 2 reasons. It's at home, and I think Marlon Humphrey is going to be fired up to go against Davante Adams. And we're going to see who the best corner in the NFL is. If Davante Adams, tears up Marlon, I'm going to still say it's Jalen Ramsey. But if, Marlon Humphreys does what he has done to every other receiver, I might have a conversation and say Marlon Humphreys is the best corner in the NFL. But that being said, I think they beat the Bengals. I think they get killed by the Rams. I think the Rams do the Ravens dirty, and that's at home in Baltimore. I think they do them dirty because what the Ravens did to them, I think it was 2 years ago in Los Angeles, what the Ravens did. So I think the Rams get them back for that, and then I think the Ravens barely beat the Steelers in the last game of the year, get it done. I have the Ravens going 14-3. I think their schedule favors them, early in the year, and I think the Ravens are a team that catches fire at the end of the year, so I think the Ravens go 14-3. Now onto the Bengals schedule. I got them beating the Vikings, losing to the Bears, losing to the Steelers, losing to the Jaguars, losing to the Packers, beating the Lions, losing to the Ravens, beating the Jets, lose to the Browns, lose to the Raiders, beat the Steelers. I think the Bengals are a really improved team. I think they beat the Steelers because I think we were seeing a little bit of turn, and it might be the hardest hitting game in football because they really don't like each other. And I think the Ravens and Steelers are the best rivalry, but the Bengals and Steelers, they take that personal. I think that's going to be a really fun game. I think the Bengals get them there. Lose to the Chargers, lose to the 49ers, lose to the Broncos, lose to the Ravens, lose to the Chiefs, lose to the Browns. I got the Bengals going 4-13. Tough year. I think, Joe's going to struggle early because he's recovering from that injury. But I could be wrong on this. I think if their receiving core and everything comes together with their offensive weapons, I think the Bengals could have a better record. But right now, I just see them going 4-13. On to the Browns' schedule. Losing to the Chiefs week 1. That's a horrible game to have week 1. No one wants to play them week 1 because they're so fast and, they don't need preseason. They're already ready to go. They're ready to light you up. That's what the Chiefs do. So that's a horrible game to have week 1. So they lose to the Chiefs. Beat the Texans. Beat the Browns. Beat the Vikings. Lose to the Chargers. Beat the Cardinals. Beat the Broncos. Beat the Steelers. Beat the Bengals. Beat the Patriots. Beat the Lions. Beat the Ravens. Then lose to the Ravens. Like I said, that's tough. Playing those back-to-back like that and you're already on a winning streak, that's a tough one to do. Beat the Raiders. Lose to the Packers. I think Aaron Rodgers in that weather where the game's at, it's going to be tough to play him there. Beat the Steelers. Beat the Bengals. Like I said, I'm very excited about the Browns. I think they got a really good football team. I wouldn't be surprised if they win the division, but I had the Ravens win the division. I had the Browns going 13-4. All right, now on to the Steelers' schedule. I might get a little criticized for this. I could see things changing. I just don't trust Pittsburgh's O-line. They got rid of everyone, and that really upsets me because the running back they just got, Najee, I think Pittsburgh could have been a playoff team. I think they'll compete, but I don't know because of where I have them at in the schedule. But I have them losing the Bills, losing to the Raiders, beating the Bengals, losing to the Packers, beating the Broncos, beating Seattle. I don't think Seattle's going to be ready for Pittsburgh that early in the year because how Pittsburgh's going to play. They're going to hit you in the mouth and you're going to have to answer. I don't think Seattle's going to be able to answer against Pittsburgh. Losing to the Browns, beating the Bears. Like I said, that one's going to be a good game, but I don't know if Andy Dalton will be the starter or not. I believe he will be still at that point, so I'm taking Pittsburgh in that one. Beating the Lions, lose to the Chargers, lose to the Bengals, lose to the Ravens, beat the Vikings, beat the Titans, lose to the Chiefs, lose to the Browns, lose to the Ravens. That's 3 horrible games to have at the end of the year for Pittsburgh when it comes playoff time for those 3 teams. I don't think that's a fun matchup in any of those games. But like I said, I think they played the Ravens very good in that last game of the year, trying to make a move and try to get in. But I have the Steelers going 7-10. I believe that will change if the offensive line's not a problem because Pittsburgh's defense, they just keep adding players to that defense. And that defense is very special. Like I said, top 5, probably top 3 in my opinion because of what they have. But if the O-line problem gets fixed, I could see Pittsburgh winning 10 games, honestly. I really could. So the big thing for me, the question mark, is the O-line. But we'll see during the year, though. All right, AFC South, start with the Texans. Beat the Jaguars. And this one's going to go fast. I have them beating the Jaguars week 1 because I think the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, is unproven. First start, you got the jitters. Everyone gets the jitters. Your first game, rookie, you're not on a good team. So I think that's how it'll play out. But I think they beat the Jaguars, lose to the Browns, lose to the Panthers, lose to the Bills, lose to the Patriots, lose to the Colts, lose to the Chargers, Cardinals, lose to the Rams, lose to the Dolphins, lose to the Titans, lose to the Jets, lose to the Colts, lose to the Seahawks, lose to the Jaguars, lose to the Chargers, lose to the 49ers, lose to the Titans. I have the Texans going 1-16. I don't think they have the right pieces. I think they have a lot of old guys on a really bad football team, and I think guys are going to be asked to request to be traded. I don't think it's going to be a good situation. Maybe those veteran guys on a bad team can glue it all together. I doubt it, but like I said, we'll have to see how this all plays out. But this is just my predictions. All right, now on to the Colts record: lose to the Seahawks, lose to the Rams, lose to the Titans. That's not a good 3 games to have at the beginning of the year. Beat the Dolphins, lose to the Ravens, beat the Texans, lose to the 49ers, beat the Titans, beat the Jets, beat the Jaguars, lose to the Bills, lose to the Buccaneers, beat the Texans, lose to the Patriots. I think that will be a close one. Lose to the Cardinals. I think that will also be a close one. Beat the Raiders, beat the Jaguars. I got the Colts going 8-9. I think, could they possibly slip another win in there? I think they could. But they got a tough schedule. They really do. They really have a tough schedule, even though I think they're in the weakest division in football. I think they have a really tough schedule. All right, now to the Jaguars record, and you'll see why I do think they have the worst division in football. Jaguars record: lose to the Texans, lose to the Broncos, lose to the Cardinals, lose to the Titans, lose to the Dolphins, lose to the Seahawks, lose to the Bills, lose to the Colts, lose to the 49ers. You see the teams I'm naming? It's not fun. Lose to the Falcons, lose to the Rams, lose to the Titans, beat the Texans the second time around, lose to the Jets in a close one. I think that one will probably go into overtime. Lose to the Patriots and then lose to the Colts. I got the Jaguars going 1-16. I just think they're going to struggle. And, I think once they're struggling through those first 9 or 10 games, they're going to be like, let's try to get let's try to get the number one pick overall again and try to keep on building. And that's what teams do, but I think that's what their plan will be after those first 8 to 10 games. Now into the Titans schedule. I got them beating the Cardinals, beating the Seahawks, beating the Colts, beating the Jaguars, beating the Jets, losing to the Bills, losing to the Chiefs, beating the Colts, lose to the Rams, beat the Saints, beat the Texans, beat the Patriots, beat the Jaguars, lose to the Steelers. Like I said, I think that Steelers game is going to be a really good game. I'm very excited for that one. I think Ben's going to look good. Beat the Niners, beat the Dolphins, beat the Texans. I think the Titans are going to have a really good football team. I think with Julio being there, I don't think Julio has an amazing year, but I think Julio being there, A.J. Brown's going to have a really good football season. And we know what Derrick Henry's going to bring to the table. I mean, you look at the defenses they're playing, there's really nothing to worry about. Just keep handing the ball to Derrick Henry. I think their defense improved with the linebackers and D linemen. I don't know if it improved with the corners. With Jenkins over there at corner being their number one, we'll have to see. So I still do think with the regular season, the games they have a really good year and win 13 games and only 4 losses. All right, now on to the NFC. We'll be starting off with the NFC East, starting off with the Cowboys schedule. I got them losing to the Buccaneers in a close one. I don't think Dallas will win that game, but I do think they'll cover the spread. I think Dallas will play them really good. I don't think they can afford 2 losses in a row. I think they go and beat the Chargers. Dallas got a lot of pressure on them. I think they beat the Chargers, beat the Eagles, beat the Panthers, lose to the Giants in a close one, but then beat the Patriots, lose to the Vikings. The Vikings really have had their number the last couple of years. It's either they play them really good or they beat them. I think, they're very similar teams, but I think the Vikings receivers are going to be the difference maker, and I think Kirk Cousins playing Dallas again. He's going to be very excited for that one. I think the Vikings beat Dallas. Beat the Broncos, beat the Falcons, lose to the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs slaughter them. I think they jump out on them early, and Dak, freaks out about it, and they just take care of them. And I think you see both teams take their starters out and just let the backups play on that one. I think they beat the Raiders, lose to the Saints. Saints had their number, and I saw them. Jameis Winston beat Dallas last year, and I just think if Michael Thomas is back, I think they will beat the Cowboys, and I think he will be back then. Yeah, he'll be back then. So I like the Saints in that one. I think Dallas then beats the Washington football team, then beats the Giants, but then loses to the Washington football team, and then loses to the Cardinals, and then beats the Eagles. I have the Dallas Cowboys going 10-7. All right, now into the Giants record. I have the Giants losing to the Broncos week 1, losing to the Washington football team, beating the Falcons, beating the Saints, beating the Cowboys, losing to the Rams, and they got on a nice win streak there. Losing to the Rams, losing to the Panthers, losing to the Chiefs, losing to the Raiders, losing to the Buccaneers, lose to the Eagles, lose to the Dolphins, lose to the Chargers, lose to the Cowboys, and went on a bad losing streak there. But then they beat the Eagles, get a bounce back, lose to the Bears, and then they beat the Washington football team at the end of the year. The Giants had the Washington football team's number really these last 2 seasons, but I think it's because the reason the Giants won that game, they want the team to prove to the fans, there's something to look forward into the future. But I think that one's a close one, but I think the Giants beat the Washington football team. All right, now into the Eagles record. I think the Eagles are one of the worst teams in football this year. I don't know if they know what they have at quarterback. If I was them, I would trade for Deshaun Watson. I think if they got him, they could potentially fight to get into the playoffs. But I just think the roster they have right now, I don't know what to think about it. And I just don't like their team at all, to be honest with you. I think they're going to get their ass kicked a lot of these games. I think they're going to struggle. I think the fans are going to stop going to some of their games. They got tough fans. It's a bad crowd, and I just don't know how it'll work out for them. I have them losing to the Falcons, losing to the Niners, losing to the Cowboys, losing to the Chiefs, losing to the Panthers, losing to the Buccaneers, losing to the Raiders, losing to the Lions in a close one, losing to the Chargers, losing to the Broncos, losing to the Saints, beating the Giants. That game's always a really good game, the Giants and the Eagles. I always tune in for that one. It's one of my favorite games to watch because you never know what will happen in those games, and it's always really close. So I really enjoy watching the Giants and Eagles play. Losing to the Jets, losing to the Washington football team, losing to the Giants, losing to the Washington football team, losing to the Cowboys. I have the Eagles going 1-16. If I'm them, I'm trading to get Deshaun Watson at any cost, whatever it takes. I'm going to trade to get him. All right, now into the Washington football team's schedule. I got the Washington football team losing to the Chargers. Like I said, I think the Chargers take care of them easily, but I think the Washington football team's going to, hold their head high and bounce back from that, beat the Giants, lose to the Bills in a close game, actually. I think that Bills game is going to be a close one. Then I have them beating the Falcons, beating the Saints, losing to the Chiefs, losing to the Packers in a close one, beating the Broncos, getting killed to the Buccaneers. No, I take that back. I think they actually play the Buccaneers pretty close. They almost beat the Buccaneers last year in the playoffs, and now Ryan Fitzpatrick's there with those weapons. I actually think the Washington football team will cover that game. I believe it's in Washington. I'm not sure. I believe it's in Washington. I think it is. I'm taking the Washington football team to cover that spread, though. But the Buccaneers beat them still. Beat the Panthers. I had the Washington football team beating the Seahawks, and then I had them beating the Raiders, losing to the Cowboys, beating the Eagles, beating the Cowboys, beating the Eagles, and then losing the Giants at the end of the year in a really close game. But I have the Washington football team going 11-6. I have them winning the division. Honestly, I'm very excited about the team they have offensively. And Antonio Gibson, I think he's a similar running back to Le'Veon Bell if you watch how he runs. I'm very excited about Gibson. I think he'll have a Pro Bowl year. And Terry McLaurin reminds me of a young Antonio Brown. I think they got a really exciting team. I think if the O-line pans out, I think they can have a really good team. I know their defense, their front four is nasty. The thing I'm worried about the Washington football team's defense is their corners. I know they have Fuller, who's a really good corner, but the thing I'm worried about, I want to see if Williams, former Bengal, can step up his game and be the number 2 there. He's a tall, lanky corner. He's 6'3". If he can have a really good season, I think Washington football team maybe could win 12 games. I'm going to keep it at 11, but I think maybe they could win 12 games. Very excited for their season. So now on to the NFC North, starting with the Packers. Going over the Packers schedule, I got the Packers beating the Saints, beating the Lions, losing to the 49ers in a close one. I think the Niners kind of have their number. Beating the Steelers in a close one, beating the Bengals, losing to the Bears. I think the Bears will probably win by a field goal at the end of the game. And even with Andy Dalton, I think the Bears defense gets a hold of Aaron Rodgers. And then I have them beating the Washington football team in a close one. I think they beat the Cardinals. Lose to the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs actually beat them pretty good. I'd probably say by 7 points. That's one score, which, that's not bad. Beating the Seahawks, beating the Vikings, beating the Rams, which, that's going to be a tough game. I think the Packers squeak it out against the Rams. Beating the Bears in the second game, losing the Ravens just because it's in Baltimore and Marlon Humphreys, and I think the Packers, I think their offensive line will struggle against the Ravens. Beating the Browns, beating the Vikings, beating the Lions. I got the Packers going 13-4. Look for a really good year from them. I'm excited to see them back because Aaron Rodgers is back playing. There was a lot of question marks with him during the offseason, so I'm happy to see Aaron Rodgers back. All right, now to the Lions schedule. And they got a tough schedule. Lose to the 49ers, lose to the Packers, lose to the Ravens, lose to the Bears, lose to the Vikings. I think they lose to the Bengals in a close one. They get killed by the Rams. They lose to the Rams. Beat the Eagles in a close one. Lose to the Steelers, lose to the Browns, lose to the Bears. Beat the Vikings, lose to the Broncos, lose to the Cardinals. Beat the Falcons in a close one. Lose to the Seahawks and lose to the Packers. I think the Lions, with the first-year head coach, I think they really need to figure out who they are and their identity and really focus on what they need to do in the offseason and the draft. I got the Lions going 3-14. All right, on to the Vikings schedule. I got them beating the Bengals, beating the Cardinals, losing to the Seahawks, losing to the Browns, beating the Lions, beating the Panthers, beating the Cowboys. Like I said, I think they beat the Cowboys, and that one's a good one. Lose to the Ravens, lose to the Chargers, lose to the Packers, lose to the 49ers, lose a close one to the Lions, lose to the Steelers, lose to the Bears, lose to the Rams, lose to the Packers, and then beat the Bears at the end of the year, the end on the high note against a division rival. A tough year for the Vikings, because I think there's some question marks with the quarterback. I really would like them to draft a quarterback and move on from Kirk. I think they need to move on from him. I really do. But I have the Vikings going 5-12. I think it's gonna be a tough year, but I think they're gonna move in the right direction next year and draft a quarterback, because I just don't trust Kirk Cousins. I really don't. All right, now for the Bears' schedule. I have them losing to the Rams in a close game, actually, even with Andy Dolan's week 1. But I do think the Rams get by. I think they win by 7, maybe 10 points, definitely 7. Beat the Bengals, beat the Browns, beat the Lions, beat the Raiders. Lose to the Packers, though. Lose to the Buccaneers, 2 hard games. They beat the 49ers. I think they beat the 49ers. I think that one's going to be a defensive game. I think the Bears could squeak that one out. Beat the Steelers, another close one I think they squeak out. Lose to the Ravens. Like I said, I think that one's going to be a really close game as well. A lot of close games here. The Bears could have a really good year. Beat the Lions, beat the Cardinals, lose to the Packers, beat the Vikings, lose to the Seahawks, beat the Giants, lose to the Vikings. I got the Bears going 10-7. And maybe they get in the playoffs with Justin Fields being the quarterback at the end of the year. We'll see. But that's how it's going to go. All right, now to the NFC South, starting with the Falcons. Schedule, I got them beating the Eagles, losing to the Buccaneers, beating the Giants, losing to the Washington football team, beating the Jets, losing to the Dolphins, beating the Panthers, lose to the Saints, lose to the Cowboys, lose to the Patriots, lose to the Jaguars. Beat the Jaguars, sorry. Lose to the Buccaneers, lose to the Panthers, lose to the 49ers, lose to the Lions, lose to the Bills, and then beat the Saints and end the season on a high note, win the last game of the year. I had the Falcons going 6-11. I wish they wouldn't have traded Julio away. I think they would have had one of the top 5 offenses in football. I'm very upset that they did that. But that being said, you're opening, the next chapter in your career. And I think maybe they move on from Matt Ryan next year, because the first step was Julio. Now the next step I think will probably be Matt Ryan, depending on how the year goes. But how I see it going, maybe they keep him one more year, maybe they don't. We'll have to see the offseason, but that's to pan out first. All right, now into the Buccaneers schedule. The Buccaneers beating the Cowboys, like I said, in the close one. I'm taking Dallas to cover that spread, by the way. Beating the Falcons, I think they tear the Falcons up. Tom owns the Falcons, so does the Patriots. Losing to the Rams. I think that Rams game, I think the Rams are going to jump out on them, and I think the Buccaneers come back, but I think the Rams have too good of a lead, and they just hold on to it, and they find a way to win. Beating the Patriots. Tom's going back home. He's going to kill them. He's going to kick their ass. It's going to be a horrible game for the Patriots. Beating the Dolphins, beating the Eagles, beating the Bears, beating the Saints, beating the Washington football team in a close one, beating the Giants, beating the Colts, beating the Falcons, beating the Bills, beating the Saints, beating the Panthers, beating the Jets, beating the Panthers again. I think the Buccaneers have a really good year. They brought everyone back from the Super Bowl team. They still had their draft picks. They drafted well. I had the Buccaneers going 16-1. I'm very excited for them. They'll win the division. Then, on to the Panthers record. I got them beating the Jets. Sam Darnold's coming back home to the Jets. I think he beats them there. Beats the Saints. Beats the Texans. Loses to the Cowboys. Beats the Eagles. Beats the Vikings. Beats the Giants. Loses to the Falcons. Loses to the Patriots. Loses to the Cardinals. Loses to the Washington football team. Beats the Dolphins. Beats the Falcons. Loses to the Bills. Loses to the Buccaneers. Loses to the Saints. Loses to the Buccaneers. They had stretches where they're winning games, a lot of games, then they're losing a lot of games, then they're winning a lot of games, and then they're losing a lot of games. But, I don't think the Panthers should hold their head low on this. Going 8-9. I don't think that's something to be disappointed in, because you know what you need to address next year. I think the Panthers fans should be pretty happy about that. Maybe they could win 9 games, but I have them going 8-9. All right, now into the Saints schedule. I have them losing to the Packers, losing to the Panthers in the close one, losing to the Patriots, beating the Giants, losing to the Washington football team, losing to the Seahawks, losing to the Buccaneers. That's tough 3 games. Beating the Falcons, losing to the Titans, beating the Eagles, losing to the Bills, beating the Cowboys. Like I said, I think when they had Michael Thomas back, it's going to be hard for them. Beating the Jets, losing to the Buccaneers, beating the Dolphins, beating the Panthers, losing to the Falcons. I got the Saints going 7-10. First year without Drew Brees, I think it's going to be tough. Michael Thomas is out for the first 6 or 8 weeks, which is also going to be hard. So you're going to see a lot of teams stacking the box against the Saints, telling Alvin Kamara, you're not going to beat us. Jameis Winston's going to have to beat us. And I don't think a lot of teams are scared of Jameis, but we'll have to see. I have the Saints going 7-10. All right, now onto the NFC West. Cardinals schedule. The Cardinals losing to the Titans week 1. I think Derrick Henry is going to be too much for them. I have the Cardinals beating the Vikings, beating the Jaguars, losing to the Rams, losing to the 49ers, losing to the Browns, beating the Texans, losing to the Packers, losing to the 49ers, beating the Panthers, losing to the Seahawks, losing to the Bears, losing to the Rams, beat the Lions, beat the Colts, beat the Cowboys, beat the Seahawks. They end the year on a high note, getting on a win streak. And I think I know the guys they brought in, right? But I don't know if I trust the Cardinals head coach. I think Kyler Murray needs to look in the mirror and figure out what needs to be done. And that organization, because they have the pieces. They really do have the pieces. It's a shame. It's probably the toughest division, honestly, besides maybe the AFC North. It's either open competition between those 2 divisions. So going 8-9, and maybe they will get 9 wins, or maybe 10. I just see them going 8-9. I think it's a tough schedule, but we'll have to see how it plays out. All right, now into the Rams schedule. The Rams beating the Bears week 1. Like I said, I think that one's going to be a really good game. I think the Rams beat the Buccaneers and beat the Cardinals. Look, you're on top of the world after those wins right there, but I had them losing to the Seahawks. I think Russell gets them there. Beating the Giants, though, getting back on the win streak, beating the Lions, beating the Texans. Lose to the Titans, though. Lose to the 49ers, 2 tough games in a row. Beating the Packers, beating the Jaguars, beating the Cardinals, beating the Seahawks, beating the Vikings, beating the Ravens, destroy the Ravens. The Rams are going to destroy the Ravens, I think. And then they beat the 49ers in a tough game. The Rams, I think they're going to be one of the top dogs in the NFC. I think at the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if it's them and the Buccaneers to go to the Super Bowl. Rams got a record of 14-3. Now into the Seahawks record. I have the Seahawks beating the Colts week 1, losing to the Titans, beating the Vikings, losing to the 49ers, beating the Rams, losing to the Steelers, beating the Saints, beating the Jaguars, but losing to the Packers. I think that one's going to be a really good game. Russell Wilson versus Aaron Rodgers. I cannot wait for that game because you're going to have 2 guys that are willing, that put it all on the line, that game against each other, and that one's going to be an awesome game. Beating the Cardinals, losing to the Washington football team. I think the Washington football team gets after Russell. I don't know how good Russell Wilson's offensive line this year is, but I know Washington's defense is going to eat him up. Beat the 49ers, beat the Texans, lose to the Rams. That's not a bad game to lose. Beating the Bears, beating the Lions, lose to the Cardinals at the end of the year. I think the Cardinals and the Seahawks split. Seahawks, I got them going 10-7. I could see them winning 11 games, but I had them going 10-7. All right, now into the 49ers. 49ers last year. Most injuries in NFL, second most COVID cases. They get all their guys back. I'm very excited, and I want to see if Garoppolo keeps his job or he loses it. I think if he loses his job, the Niners could be a Super Bowl dark night. Maybe go to the Super Bowl and win it. Very excited for them. Beating the Lions week 1. I think they killed the Lions. Beating the Eagles, beating the Packers, beating the Seahawks, beating the Colts. Then losing the Bears in a tough one. Beating the Cardinals, beating the Rams, beating the Jaguars, beating the Vikings, losing to the Seahawks, beating the Bengals, beating the Falcons, beating the Titans, and beating the Texans, and beating the Rams. And I have the 49ers with a record of 14-3. I'm very excited about this season. And I think the NFL will make a lot of money, as usual. But, the fans are back. A lot of different things are going to be happening this year. The season is going to be awesome, and like I said, we're 6 days away until the NFL season's back, and then I'll be giving my NFL weekly predictions every week. Starting up again, I'm very excited to be back and just having a consistent podcast every week. So I hope you guys are excited. I hope we can both win a lot of money this year, like I did last year, and some of you guys that took my picks from last year. So I hope we can do it again. But that was it for my podcast. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for tuning in.